Well, who they are, we don't know, but it's rare. It's not unheard of, but it is very, very rare. I mean, we had the same thing in the Glenn Clark trial. Apparently, or it was the Jillian Guest case where there was a wiretap that caught up an attorney general in government, and because Peter Gill, the accused, had his brother worked for government. You know, he was in. So sometimes wiretaps to catch people that shouldn't be caught, and they're supposed to not listen. I don't know if somebody's coming to testify about that sort of thing. I don't really know who these. I mean, there has been lots of speculation.
Well, short of getting into legal trouble, any speculation on what the issue might be here, Keith Baldry?
No. I mean, the legal opinion we've all received is stay away from this in terms of speculating, because the judge wants to make it clear this is not something for speculation. It is coming up into court, I think, in May. The Court of Appeal is going to hear the appeal on this for a couple of days, or I think maybe it's June, whether or not the defense can actually sit in there. And as Neil says, it does happen from time to time, but two witnesses in a case like this that has such political charged atmosphere to it, I'm amazed and I'm astonished that this is going to happen.
There's been some hint, and the hint was provided by I think it was the special prosecutor, the judge. They referenced in court an earlier court decision, and that court decision related to whether or not the news media would have access to testimony from a police informant. And that's what's led us to guess it might be a police informant. But frankly, even that is just a guess. And the other guess, based on the documentation, is that there are two secret witnesses, and we'll just have to leave it at that and say that's one reason why you want to stay tuned to this case, because it's an interesting one. Here's Tillman again, and I think his email site is there on the bottom of his name when he runs. If you want to follow some of this stuff, there's all kinds of detail on his website. But here's Bill Tillman, and he's asking about another political connection in this case, this one involving the BC Liberal Party. Here's Bill Tillman.
One of the troubling aspects of the BC legislature raid case is the role of the RCMP in the police investigation. We've learned that Kelly Reichert, the BC Liberal Party Executive Director, is the brother-in-law of Inspector Kevin DeBruckier, one of the key investigators in the basi virk case, and that they discussed the case. We also know that Sergeant Andrew Cowan, one of the other investigators, bought a home from David Basi's mother some years before the raid. These two instances are just a small example of some of the problems which the RCMP face in credibility, and also potentially with the defense trying to have this case thrown out of court.
These are things the defense is certainly going to raise in court. It's a reminder British Columbia is a small world.
It's a small world, and Bill raises two interesting connections. There are other ones. Eric Bornmann took a law class that was at one point taught one night by Bill Berardino after the raid. The special prosecutor. Bill Berardino says he didn't know Eric Bornmann was in the class, but again, this strange thing that occurs. Recently, Ken Dobell, of course, the former deputy minister of the government, was charged with breaking the Lobbyist Registration Act. His lawyer, George McIntosh. George McIntosh is Eric Bornmann's lawyer. Ken Dobell has made a statement to police as part of this investigation, is very likely to be called a witness. So Mr. McIntosh may be cross-examining someone who's his former client. So it's a
before
this
snake world devours its tail. We're going to bring in the issue of political dirty tricks here, and I'm going to let Neil talk about this because there's been allegations about this, but Neil will actually have some idea of how much of this has actually been aired in court. Not a lot is my guess, but let's go to Sean Holman with a question on political dirty tricks. Here's Sean.
During the basi virk trial, it has been suggested that David Basi conducted a campaign of dirty tricks on behalf of the Campbell administration. But it has also been suggested that those dirty tricks are simply par for the course when it comes to politics. Does this mean, though, that we shouldn't take such allegations seriously?
Normally in a case, and Neil, help me here, but because you've been in court and I haven't, but normally in a court case you get testimony, it gets presented by one side or the other and tested by the other side. And that's evidence, or there's a document. This kind of stuff is being introduced by mostly defense lawyers trying to persuade the judge. They're saying, we've read document A, we're We think they're holding back stuff. So they raise this as allegations. This isn't evidence.
No, it isn't. And it reminds me of the Glenn Clark trial. They set up a kind of a straw man, an RCMP officer who apparently was thinking of running for the Liberals and of course wanted to prosecute Glenn Clark. I mean, it was the same sort of thing. The judge, it happened to be the same judge as this one, finally said to the defense lawyer, David Gibbons, when are you going to call this officer?
He never did.
He says, well, we don't want to call any witnesses. And she goes, well, you've left this impression over many, many months, and this poor officer. The same thing here. I mean, they've leaked a certain amount of stuff in court, or not leaked it, but presented a certain amount of allegations in court. It's not evidence, because what lawyers say is not evidence, but they made allegations that there was some phone calls made to radio talk shows to try to discredit NDP members, to give support to Liberal members, and lob them softball questions, to the Premier, and then we're congratulations.
And this goes back to the political climate at the time, where the government is under siege, under attack by all sorts of groups, and are sinking in popularity. And this also fits, I think, the defense's characterization of what was going on here, that Dave Basi and Bob Virk were political appointees, political operatives, doing things at the behest of their political masters, whether it was the Premier's office or other masters, but they were hired, with the exception of Basi, Bob Virk was hired by the Premier's office. And I think the defense is laying the foundation here that the normal operation of business in the government included the activities these two men were up to. They weren't illegal, and in any case, they were doing it on the instruction of their political masters in the government.
But the problem that we have in reporting this is it's clearly an issue in the trial, and I'm happy to have viewers get it, and it may turn out to be true. It may end up being something that damages the government, but the problem we have in reporting any of this is it's the defense raising it as a means of defending their clients and getting something for their clients in court. It's not like somebody got up and testified in open court. No. A police officer gets up and says, well, I listened to a wiretap and I heard him say this on the radio.
And there's no cross-examination. I mean, there's no questions about that in court. I mean, it's the defense lawyer saying, well, this is what happened on such and such a day or in such and such a circumstance. But that's it. There's no chance to cross-examine that person in that fashion.
When you're in court and the defense is doing this, is the special prosecutor making any attempt to refute any of this? Is he or his associates saying anything?
They're strictly looking at trying to comply with the disclosure order that the judge made in very clear terms last summer, and has been trying to maintain that and comply with that. And it seems to be a never-ending, expanding issue. But the Crown has really not said anything. They haven't, I mean, really, if they would have done an opening statement and gone into all this, at least we'd know what the allegations are, and we'd know sort of the scope of the case, but the Crown really hasn't said anything.
And
they're constantly just sort of updating the court on where everything stands.
Let's talk about this special prosecutor system we have here in British Columbia. Is regarded by many people as a model for independence in handling political cases. The special prosecutor is named at the outset, and after that, the government can't tell the special prosecutor to do anything.
No, Bill Berardino.
If they want to instruct Bill Berardino, they have to publish the instruction in the official gazette of the government.
That's right. It's a process that was derived by Stephen Owen when he was the ombudsman. It came out of a scandal involving the old social credit government.